Hey, what's up, guys? I got a deck list for you today. Of course, it is my Ascension Goten that I took second with at the Kenosha Qualifier. Super excited. I might not sound like it, but it was a lot of fun. Guys, I had a blast. I got to thank John Slupik for hosting it. Got to thank the Fancy Dev team for keeping the game going, and of course my buddy Mike Teagues for letting me stay with him as always. But if you want to write up with a report or you want to watch the tournament and some of the stream matches, see this deck in action actually for a few of those matches, I think 3 of them, you can check out my channel, the Kenosha Qualifier stream. I have it timestamped and everything. Anyway, guys, let's get to the meat and cheese of the video, the deck list. So, of course, you gotta go fast. Oh, yeah. It's a pretty neat deck. So I suppose we'll talk about inspiration for this deck. Mostly came from I played Ryan Lambden at last year's North Kai, and he was running the Amp Goten, and I knew that was a pretty strong deck. I knew Amp Goten was a pretty strong MP, but he proceeded to just wipe the floor with me. I was running Mistress Deborah, and sorry, I'm just trying to get this to set right. Here we go. Nope, just kidding. Okay, anyway. And that deck just did so much damage. It just did so much damage. It was ridiculous. Uh, so we ended up doing here. What I ended up doing is I ended up making like a Ascension version after the tactical drill nerf happened. If you don't know, red tactical drill used to be you could run it as a 3 of, and what that deck did is it would Amp Goten would level to 2, get tactical drill, proctivate the mastery to make it so that it couldn't leave play, and then you would just pretty much always have tactical drill, and you would run any card that you could to make sure you would always have tactical drill. It's a really silly deck. It was untouchable in terms of you could just pretty much never touch its anger because the amplified mastery would protect the drill. Anyway, with it gone, I figured Ascension would still be pretty cool because you still have a lot of the same cool combos that Amp had, but you're faster on NPPV. The only difference is that you don't have as much protection against anti-anger. So it was much more of a glass cannon in the sense of how it operated, and you also had a lot less freedom in terms of the freestyles that you could run because you had to try to keep consistency with your mastery, which will come into kind of some of the comments I have about the deck later. But as you can see, I'll just rotate. It has a lot of attacks. This is all attacks here. Over here is all attacks. There's of course one blinding energy move, and I kept all my combat enders together here that I run. I run Gohan, Great Saiyaman, Earthball 7 to Red Retreat, blinding energy move. Now at this time I think there's a Kid Trunks ally too that also ends combat, I believe, if you play it. That just came out in this new set that dropped the day before Kenosha. Of course that wasn't legal. And there is I'll talk about a couple other cards that I would probably add into this deck now that set 12 is legal. But of course this was the final list for the deck in the set 11 meta. As you can see, I run a handful of board cards, and I'll get to why those ones are... Actually, matter of fact, I'm going to start with those cards, because these are actually probably the more important cards of the deck in terms of where you find your numbers, and what really separates this deck from Amplified. So, of course, you're going to be having a single copy of Red Sword Slicing Drill, because you only ever want to grab this card when you know for sure that you have a Sword Stab and Pile. A big part about this deck is that this is the only sword card that you're going to ever be able to grab. Most of the time you don't get this until you're on level 4. The main drill that you're going to be grabbing, and the only other drill I run in this deck that I actually managed to run this at 3 is Red Controlled Anger Drill. The whole deck revolves around this drill. Being at 3, if you can't read it, of course, it says when this drill leaves play, you raise your anger 1. Probably not focusing too well. And then it does have a power. It says you rejuvenate X. X is your anger level. You really don't ever use that power unless you get stalled out in a combat. Generally just trying to chain your anger as much as possible. And what's nice about Goten is every time Goten levels up, he's going to be grabbing you a drill. So of course his level 1 is a physical attack, gives you an anger. Again, you probably can't read too well because of the blur, but his level 2 is a physical attack. That hit gives you anger, but when you advance to this level, you go grab a style drill from your life deck. Level 3 can grab a style drill from your Discard Power life deck when you advance to it. And level 4 grabs 2 drills from any zone, up to 2. So the idea is that every time you level, you're trying to just bounce controlled anger drill into play, and that's the main way that this deck operates. That's the difference between this and the amp. Is the amp was trying to get tactical drill and this drill kind of occasionally, and it usually would play a little bit more beady, a little slower on the anger. This deck is all anger, all in. You're selling on it. I run 2 Destiny. I had this at 3 for the longest time. The problem with this card is that it's a dead card and I want to enter a lot, and and I was drawing it, and we're also, a lot of the decks I was playing against were just way too aggressive for me to see this card. You get this card against Mischievous, you're card down when if you want to enter and try to speed anger, so they're going to wreck your hand quicker. Aggressive decks are going to be entering on you a lot. You don't want to dead draw, so I found this at 2 has been the best number for me. Maybe you're a person that thinks 3, but I think this is an amazing 2. It's too good not to run. Honestly, it's too good of a card not to run. It's so good. Being able to enter Mastery, 2 anger card, Destiny, of course, Red Ascension Mastery gives you that skip anger. So if you hit a styled card, you're going to skip your opponent and play this for 3 anger. I mean, it's just one of the many 3 anger combos in the deck that makes it so good at MPPV, because you make it hard for your opponent to lower your anger. We have 3 relaxation to kind of close out the board cards. Of course, this card is so insane. It's hard to not run this card. It gives you can drop this on a turn, and unlike Destiny, it replaces itself in your hand. Gives you some stages. It gives you 4 stages with the Master matter effect, because it gives you 2 off the card itself, and then you use a crit damage effect to get 2 more stages. Super helpful. A lot of beat decks that were, at least in this last meta or 2 here, these last 2 sets especially, even throughout all of Fantasy, really, there's been a lot of stage beats decks, so this card is always really helpful, and just having a utility crit is really, really helpful, especially when entering. You can throw off a lot of decks, capturing Dragon Balls, killing things like a Beat a Wild Eye and such. We'll move on to the attacks here. I start off with Rotano attack at 3. Super useful, really good against Mischievous. It's really easy to just like bait your opponent into discarding this card out of your hand with discard effect cards. If people ever play a card that lets you choose what card you discard, you love seeing this. This card helps you enter on people that are gonna. Just makes it even better for entering on people that draw a bunch of cards when entering combat, like Goku, Supreme Kai, and such. Like getting an extra card against them is huge. Kid Trunks, when he's playing his quickness drill, you play this card, you draw a card. Otherwise, most of the time it's just kind of a bland AT3 that gives you one anger, but it has endurance, so the endurance is also really helpful. Really nice card. As far as bland anger, really this is only in here because it gives a lot of endurance, because you can go grab it with Swordplay Drill. It just gives you some more hand advantage. So the idea is, like, when you level up to 4, you're going to be grabbing one of these, and you're going to grab a Swordplay Drill. And Swordplay Drill, giving you a sword card, essentially gave you an anger, because you're getting a card that gives you anger. And then this card, when it leaves play, which you're level 4, says that you can destroy a drill with its effect. You're level 3, same thing. You destroy this for an anger. So you've essentially, when you hit level 4, you get 2 anger for free by the time you get there. Ideally, that you've played one of these, or one of them's hit your pile from damage, and then you use your level 4 and you blow this up, so it just puts you that much closer. Your Mastery, of course, will give you an anger at the end of combat to put you at 3 anger, ideally. Maybe even 4 if you haven't used the Mastery yet. That's another reason why this deck is so fast. Red Right Cross, one of the best cards in the deck. I had it at 2 for a long time. I went all in at 3. Don't regret it. It's a big, hefty stage cost. It's an AT4 physical that raises your anger too, but it costs you 4 stages. But gosh darn, like, is it so worth it? So many times again, one of those another 3 anger combos, just like Red Destiny with the Mastery. So powerful. I can't tell you how many times like I completely skipped levels on people before I could even lower my anger or attempt to even crit me when I was like near stage lock or something. Only problem with this card is that it costs 4 stages, which your PUR for your level 1 you start off at 2 PUR and you go up by 1 every level, of course. So 2, 3, 4, and 5. And so actually being able to play the card is hard when you get stage locked on level 1 or 2, but usually you can play around it. And again, that's another reason why Red Relaxation is so helpful, being able to help you pull off Red Right Cross from any level. Super valuable. Red Double Strike's really only in here. This deck doesn't really do the whole skip end mechanic that like Oppressive and Ascension a lot of times do. So even slow cards like Double Strike are so nice because it's a 2 anger card ultimately. And this card is a big part of why I was able to beat win one of my finals matches, my top cup matches against Orange 20. He had an acquisition drill out, and all I did was I just threw this out, and I just sequenced my anger out so that I kept having one anger. And if he passed or tried to not do a thing, I had enough actions with like my level 4 and cards in my hand that I could just keep sitting there, sitting at one anger. And because there's so many 3 anger combo swing cards in this deck, if he let me sit at one anger, and if combat I would get an anger with my mastery, I could enter mastery and then 2 anger card and win. So again, just this helps you really make your opponent think about how to sequence against you with anti-anger. Just leaving this card on the board. Plus, against Mischievous, you play this card first. It means that if they master you, no matter what, you're always going to be able to draw another card because you just let this sit there. They master you, use the second use of it, get the card back in your hand. Red Driving Knee. This is a super awesome card too, especially against beats decks. Really, really good because if you aren't at full, what the mastery does, the Red Ascension mastery gives you stages when you use a crit damage effect. Well, if this hits, it gives you a crit damage effect, and if you've gained right here, Mike is always being funny. If you've gained stages this combat, you're able to raise your anger one off this card. And like I said, if you've paid stages for an energy attack, you've taken some stage damage, you're not at full, you hit this card as a 2 anger card. And again, it's like Mastery plus this, 2 anger. Mastery plus right cross, 2 anger. Super, super powerful. And of course, I'm going to have to talk about probably the best card in the deck, and seriously, one of the big combo makers of the deck. 4 anger swing potential card is Red Counter Kick. This card says raise your anger 1. You can destroy separate drill you control to raise your anger 1. You combo this card with red controlled anger drill. You can enter combat after you level to 4, let's say, and you ended the combat with 1 anger. You can enter combat mastery, and after you've leveled 4 and you put this out, you play this card, and you mastery for 2 anger, then hit this for 3 anger and you win. It's just so silly. Like, this is a 4 anger combo with this deck. You can do the same thing with Ascension. I mean, you can't quite do the same thing with Gamp Goten. Like, you don't have that 4 anger on swing like he does. And that's another reason why I really like the Ascension build. Again, it's MPBV focus, so that's why we're really focusing around this drill. But Counter Kick is so incredible. In worst case scenario, you see Swordplay Drill. You just play Swordplay Drill, even if you see it early game, or you see it on a enter, or you even search it if you're out of these, just because if you see Counter Kick, it turns into a 3 anger swing at the least. With Counter Kick. Super, super powerful. Probably the best card in the deck. And of course, Red Mule Kick. This card is awesome. You know, if you ever got wall broken, it'd be where nobody really plays that card anymore. But there's a lot of people still running attached cards. And if you play against a red deck, you actually get to, if you kill one of their cards, you get to get a crit, which is cool. So, but this card is super helpful. Just a really, really good tech card. I don't think it's ever going to go away from any red anger deck. You have to be wary of Wall Breaker. We'll skip over my blocks and actually go over to the energy attacks here. So the energy attacks are something... oh, and we have actually 3 more physical attacks. I have 3 of the red shoulder grab. Some matchups you're going to really need this card. Again, this is another way to get rid of Wall Breaker, worst case scenario. But this card can be really good because every time you're hitting and you're dealing crit damage, you're going to get 2 stages from your mastery because you use a crit effect. I don't know. It didn't really come into play for me at all, I don't think. I might have used it like 1 or 2 of my games to kind of take like a ball or 2, I think. But at that point, I think I was already dealing critical damage anyway without it. It was kind of an underperformer, but I've found that I think it's a really good card to have. It's definitely one that I could see going. It's kind of on like the cut. It's kind of just depending on the matchup. Ball decks have to be wary about this card, though, because I have no other immediate crit cards. Driving Knee's not enough, in my opinion. So having this, being able to kill allies randomly against the right deck, it's worth it. You go through so many actions with this deck when you're leveling. And then of course, actually, there's 2 more physical attacks. Heroic Dashing Punch. Of course, you got your proxy. Whoops, the proxy one here. That's just me printing out, and then the Awesome Sauce Proxy Manga Art one. The super good card. This card plus Mastery turns everything into so there's actually 5 anger combo you could technically do with Counter Kick. You could play this, skip them, mastery, skip them, and then counter kick a controlled anger drill. Counter kick the controlled anger drill, and get 5 anger. So again, just super, super silly. Not to mention this card hitting shuts off your opponent from getting anger. This card protects you actually. This is actually a very like defensive card more than anything, but this helps you sequence so well. Because of that skip being so good, it's like I almost do want to run Red Explosion in this deck, but it being an energy that doesn't give immediate anger and has to hit anger, and this deck again is not really too much focused on ending combat. A lot of times it likes to just run through the combat here. Ooh, excuse me, sorry, I'm just a little tired. I've been up forever, but anyway, those are the main cards, and then of course the energy attacks sandwiched in there. We have 2 red energy blast. This is a cool. I mean, again, this can ban it. This banishes a setup, or sorry, an ally or a drill. It has to. So you can combo this with controlled anger drill to give you a little anger burst, like a mastery. Plus this is a 3 anger combo. But it's just nice to have a little bit of utility with the banish effect for opponents, allies, and drills. I have this in here, controlled arm blast. I've been trying to get this card in forever. It's kind of in and out of this deck over time, but I put it back in last second. It's a good performer. I like that you can play it offensively to get anger as the attack, and defensively. It was really nice to have the extra block, and it's styled. So really, it's just I just really wanted to go for assurance that Fizz stage beats wouldn't beat me, and Goten is hard to kill with stage beats, as you'll see once we get into the block line here. But this is also blocks, so think of this as +3. I really like cards with duality like that. Would I run it at 3 anymore? I think I'd keep it at 3. Maybe I'd go to 2. I would probably experiment with it too. If once people start moving away from stage beats decks, I think like they'll start exploring. The more people explore the energy decks, the more likely I'd be to cut this down to 2. And probably throw an energy block in if I was going to do anything. Of course, Red Static Shot is at 3. People kept looking at this promo and having to like read what it is, but this is of course the Awesome Socks proxy promo here. 3 of them. This card I was really back and forth on, mainly because it didn't give immediate anger, but I landed the majority of these I threw. The only times this ever got stopped is combats where my opponent had time. I think I got it stopped by an energy block 1 time, like a dedicated energy block, the entire tournament. So anyway, those are all the attacks. You may be asking why don't I run Red Freezing Beam? I had it in here. It was really hit and miss. It was honestly garbage. For the majority of my matches, unless I was on 4, and even then, like I usually had all the drills anyway. I didn't have problems getting them and keeping. So maybe in a meta where people are really hating on drills and they're killing your controlled anger drill a lot, and you want to keep bouncing controlled anger drill, I could see it, but I see the drill just enough to where I need it. So I think I could see a build running Freezing Beam. If I was going to run Freezing Beam, I would run it over Static Shot. Probably would be the card I'd cut for it. And I will tell you why I would do that once we get to the end build here and what changes I would make for the new set here. But we'll finish off with the block line. So I have 3 red Brace. This was red Flea. There was red Flea and Brace in here. I ended up opting for just 3 Brace and calling it a day because it recycles itself if I see it. It goes, of course, rejuvenates itself after use, slows my opponent's aggro, and raises me 1. 2 endurance, really good card. My only 3 energy blocks. I knew some people were going to be playing energy, but I just figured I could probably survive with most of my endurance. There's a pretty good amount of endurance in this deck. I think there's like 50, maybe 50 plus endurance in here. So I figure I'm just going to just race their damage with my anger. So you go into the block line again. I really wanted to make sure I didn't lose the physical, so I got 3 blocking hands, 2 anger card. Of course, this was mastery, 3 anger swing. Matter of fact, this could be. We want to keep talking about these anger swings. You could add this as block this, throw the dashing punch in, mastery, counter kick, and because counter kick's all like separate anger, you could end up like on like level. Let's just do a hypothetical here. Let's say somebody attacks me. I blocking hands. I mastery, skip them to 3 anger, 4 anger. Counter kick, wherever the hell you are. Raise my anger 1 to level. I go search controlled anger drill, kill it with this, get 2 anger. So that is, what, a 7 anger swing you could potentially do without your opponent getting an action? I mean, it's just silly, silly, silly. So, next we move on to, of course, red resourceful block. I have it at 2. I like it at 2 because I don't want to see it all the time. Because sometimes it kind of... You can play around this with this card really well to where if you play it on level 4, go down to 3, you lose, like, let's say you had advanced to 4, you lose the controlled anger drill from 4, you get an anger, and then if you just get yourself up to 4 anger by the end of the combat, you'll bump back up, or sorry, yeah, at 3 or even 4 anger at the end of the combat, you'll bump yourself back up. Oh my gosh, I'm throwing myself off. Yeah. Bump yourself back up, but never. Anyway, pretend I'm trying to think of way too hard for the combos. Pretty much what this is mainly doing is it's going to replenish your stages. It gives you the ability to jump back down to your level 1 and 2, really. Both of which are attacks that can give you anger. You can use those to get some extra supplemental anger. And then, of course, every time you're advancing back up to these levels, you're getting, to the 2 and the 3 and the 4, you're getting your drills back. Well, you keep bouncing controlled anger drill back out and into play. This card can actually get you, like, if you were on, like, level 2, you jump back down to 1, get the 1 anger from 1 to, like, level back up to get the controlled anger drill, kill that controlled anger drill, and then use the level 2. Just a stupid amount of anger, not to mention just all the drill tutoring. This card is really, really helpful. Can give, essentially, you play this card, you get another 5 stages too when you're stage locked. So, again, stage beats really don't have an easy time against this deck between the anger and the leveling. And then, of course, to round it off, this was the hardest thing to put at 3, and definitely a card that I was playing around with numbers on really hard, but defensive stance, Goten's defensive stance. Only problem I wouldn't run this card at 3 is because it's non-stalled, and I hit it with a lot with the mastery. I'll probably put this card down to 2 at this point, and probably go a 3rd resourceful block. Maybe even not replace it with another physical block for now. Depends. I could see myself running the Kid Trunks ally in this spot too, but I kind of want to drop non-styles down to as low as possible. But such a good card. I mean, what this card is so nice about and why you run it is because it puts you to full. So you can take a couple, you can take like 2 physicals, block the 3rd one, this one, go up to full, and what it does is it rejuvenates 3 of your drills. I believe they don't even have to be, it's 3 style drills, so, but we're only running styled in this deck, but it helps keep your controlled anger drills in your decks, that way you can go fetch them with your levels when you're going up. And for red retreat, which we'll get to. Super, super good card, though. This just another reason why Goten is so good against stage beats. Not to mention his levels all give you stage modifiers, so you're beating down your opponent. And when you get up to 2 on 4, you're doing negative modifiers, stage modifiers to your opponent. We round off the blocks with Time as a Warrior's Tool. I won't even show you, but time stops all attacks. And Blinding Energy move, I consider a defensive card. Again, you're using this card. I have it at 1 because I don't always see it. A lot of times I want to get into these longer combats, and I was seeing it too much at 2, and I didn't like hitting with the mastery. But it's just another way to end combat. Just just enter combat using your mastery alone, and then playing that just means you get 2 anger because you get an anger out of combat that your opponent didn't get. Just ways to kind of cheese out people. Great Sandman ally, of course you play him, he's a combat ender. If you play him from your hand, you don't care about anything else on him, you're never going to get to use it. Ball 7, Earth, another combat ender. Of course, 2 red retreats. Red retreat being the best combat ender to see because it's a styled card, so it's not going to get hit by non-styled hit. But it can be sphered. But other than that, what you do with this card, of course, is you go grab controlled anger drill, or if you have one out already. What's nice is when you can just enter combats and pop this. You bring out controlled anger drill, banish it for an anger. And it gives you an anger when it leaves play, of course. Banish it to end combat after you masteried. If you mastery, play this, banish this, and then combat ends, you erase your anger 1. You got 3 anger, and all you did was just enter and end combat. So it's a good. All these commenters are really nice against people that are trying to set up their pile for the perfect draw effects to counter you. It makes it really hard to enter on this deck and try to set up pile drawing, and it really makes you second guess whether or not you're going to enter on it with a really strong hand. But that's combat ending in general. So anyway, that's the deck. I did the best to explain all the combos and stuff. Things I would change. So I'll get to the things I would change. So the deck 1's really good. weakness would be Protective Mastery, maybe Knowledge, Namekian deck that's looping ball, maybe just a Namekian deck that can loop ball 2 consistently. Black Trick Shot is huge. Black Trick Shot's probably the worst counter to the deck. You really, what you gotta do against Trick Shot, against a deck that you think is gonna have Trick Shot on you, you gotta wait for them to play Trick Shot, and then you end combat. And you just try to make them. The biggest counter to way to beat this is like you gotta be aggressive with like a Trick Shot. You gotta enter the Trick Shot because Trick Shot goes to the start of your next turn. So you're gonna at least force them to maybe pass a combat on you because they're not gonna get any anger. So that's something to consider, being really aggressive against black decks that run Trick Shot. A lot of times going in with a combat ender is really nice if you think they're going to have it or you know they're going to have it. So that way you just wait for them to play it and you just end combat. So then they got one combat and they robbed you out of maybe like 2 anger at worst, which is fine. That's a sacrifice you kind of got to make to burn them out of Trick Shot. Again, the deck is purely NPPV. I don't think I've ever won a survival game. I think I've won very few survival games with this deck. I've changed it. I didn't win a single game by survival at Kenosha. I won them all by MPPV. I got some close. You do a lot of stage damage just purely because Goten has modifiers and there's a lot of AT4 physicals in here. So if you can keep someone down on a level, you can definitely start beating on them. And that's the difference between the Amplified build and the Ascension build, is that the Ascension build is going for anger. The Amplified build is like anger kind of beats. They're kind of, you might prioritize one or the other. It's not as fast as Ascension, but it's got a better backup than Ascension. So it's kind of like, think of like Essential rating as like a 90 out of 100 on anger, whereas Amplified is like an 80 out of 100, but its beats is like 80 versus like Ascension's beats is like 60. If that makes sense. Like Amplified's definitely got the better just all around stats, I would argue. They're pretty similar. I just think Amplified is slower, but its anger gain is a lot more controllable and steady, and its beats are a lot stronger. You can run I'll Dig Your Grave in the deck and one turn kill someone. So, but as far as changes I would do to this deck, now that we're in set 12, now that I can actually run those cards, so there's a couple cards that I really kind of are hard sells for me. And again, I think if I was going to keep this deck going, I would probably just play on the Controlled Anger gimmick, Controlled Anger Drill gimmick a bit more. Whoop. Sorry about this camera, it's just getting a little awkward to kind of sit up here. What I would cut, or even try to add extra, Shoulder Grab could almost go, maybe, to make room. Static Shot, I would maybe consider dropping Static Shot, running 3 Freezing Beam, running a 3rd Energy Blast. There's now Red Celestial Strike, which I'm going to actually bring up on Octagon because I wanted to have the image. Oops, I wanted to have all the image stuff ready for you guys to show you the cards and why I would run them. Red Celestial Strike, of course, says destroy a drill or ally, and then the God Trait effect. But we don't care about the God Trait. We just care about racing your one, destroy a drill or ally. What's nice about it destroying, instead of banishing, it means it's a little bit slightly easier. There's a couple more cards that we can maybe grab Controlled Anger Drill with. But that would maybe be a card more for Amp. But I would run Celestial Strike. I would run the Celestial Strike to supplement. Oops, yeah, I gotta make sure. Sorry, you guys can't see Celestial Strike with how I have this going, but Celestial Strike here, of course. Super good card. It's just another card that's free though too. And again, this would be if I was just purely making the deck more about the drill, and I would probably run. I had Red Cheap Shot in here. I cut that. Maybe I would consider running that just because Celestial Strike and Controlled Anger Drill. But I would literally run as many cards as possible that I could just grab Controlled Anger Drill, and then between Celestial Strike and Counter Kick, and Energy Blast, you have all these like 3-4 anger combos that you could add more into the deck. Would I cut? What else would I cut? For the most part, everything else is pretty good. There's the new Red Drill. I believe, what is it called? What is it called? It's like Red Stylish Drill or something like that. It's some new drill, and it says when your anger is lowered. When your anger is lowered, you can raise it right back immediately. I don't know where I would put that drill. I really want to run it at like a 1. As a 1, because the drill line is so tight right now. The deadline is so tight right now. I don't want any more dead cards. If I was gonna do that, I'd be running like red face break in this deck. I could see it going in the place of maybe a red destiny. No, not even. Like maybe I don't know. I don't know where I'd put it honestly. I'm trying to find the card while I'm talking about it, but it would be so hard to red attitude drill. That's what it's called. I'm gonna minimize this over here. So red attitude drill, of course. This card, it's kind of hard to read here because Octagon is really fuzzy, but this card, of course, says use when your opponent lowers your anger, pay 3 stages to raise your anger axles. So you also have to have stages too. So it does have a power you get to gain 3 stages. We don't really care about that, but it's kind of nice. Either way, that drill could see an add-in as a some really spicy tech, especially if people are starting to play more anti-anger, or you're worried about blue head knocks. Somebody could blue head knock you, and you just immediately play that drill back in response, and bam, completely useless. But yeah, guys, I really like this deck. I think Celestial Strike and that Attitude Drill could make it in. Celestial Strike probably better. And again, I could see the Static Shot going kind of like really good, kind of really hit and miss. And you could just completely play on that gimmick. I think another card, the final card that I would throw in here, would probably be Red Flea. If I was going to run another card, especially with this new set coming up, I feel people are going to be coming in back for those energy beats. I really think energy beats is going to come up at least for a bit until people start being smart about stage beats, or maybe for all we know, the stage beats might just be completely dead as far as like a competitive deal here. But either way, I think this is a really strong deck. It could even still hang around. Could be better. Could be refined. Maybe you have a better idea. Kid Trunks Ally could make it in here. I don't know. I would say could it go into Goten's defensive stance for sure. Could go down to 2. And you could even run Kid Trunks over Blinding Energy move. You could run all more combat enders. I think there's just so... You could focus on like the skip thing. I think he's not the best for the skip. I think he wants to be in combat. I say run anything that can grab the drill. That just, again, Controlled Anger Drill gives you so much utility. Again, there's like once you start getting past like the core amount of drills here, you might as well just run Amplified in my opinion. I think, and I still think even though Attitude Drill is really good, I could see you just not running it at all in this deck. I could, because the spacing. You need to. This deck is trying to enter every combat and have an optimal hand, and even in, the combat enders are really just there for when you get like the wrong set of blocks in the matchup. That's really what the combat enders are for. Is when you know that you're about to get slapped around a bit. But super defense, it's just got so much just energy in this deck, like so much anger, so many like actions bursting of anger. I regularly NPPV in 2-3 combats on people with this deck unless they draw hard anti-anger. It's so silly. I got my anger lowered by Azareth, I think like 6 or 8 in one combat, and I still went 1-4, and like with 2 anger on level 4. When I started the combat with like 2 anger on Goten 1, like 2 or 3 anger on Goten 1, like it's silly, like what this deck can do when you see the right stuff. And it's really consistent. I think it's more consistent than Red Piccolo because Red Piccolo is at the mercy of what he draws. Goten is very much, I have a lot of cards that work really well, and I have a lot of synergies with, there's just a lot of built-in synergy with the grabbing the drill and your levels interacting with Controlled Anger Drill. Your level 3 and your 4 can blow it up. Your level 2 just gives you 2 anger. Your level 1 gives you an anger and can put those drills back in early if you see them hit the pile through damage and stuff. So, but yeah, really, it's a really fun deck. Really, really saucy. Not unbeatable. Like I said, if I was going to change it right now, I'd probably drop Goten's defensive stance, probably Static Shot. Maybe not. It's a hard, like weird area. I would drop Static Shot if I wanted to run triple Energy Blast, triple Celestial, triple Counter Kick to play around Controlled Anger Drill. I think that's too much though almost. I could see Celestial Strike over Energy Blast just because that way I don't have to worry about getting stage locked, but that would be if I was not worried about banishing my opponent's stuff. So I don't know. But I think it works pretty good right now. Again, might tweak it like with those cards to play more on the drill. That'd be about the only thing I would do. Maybe add Kid Trunks instead of Blinding Energy moves so I don't have to kill myself when I play a block vet. Uh, yeah, Kid Trunks should definitely go in actually because it draws you a card when entering, so it would just make this deck actually way sillier. But yeah, guys, hopefully you enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. I had a blast. I'm looking forward to the next sets. Expect to see a lot more decks coming for me. Hopefully, I'll try not to spoil too much for people that are really trying to hide combos, but anything's open at this point, boys. Anyway, take it easy. Peace.